The Chicago Sky are 3-3 through the first 6 games of the season. And depending on how you look at it, it can tell 2 different stories. On one side, the team is clearly tougher than what it was last year. I feel the defense is real and the energy feels different. Kamilla Cardoso looks like she is a legit anchor to that team now this season. And Natasha Cloud and others have brought legit leadership to this team as well, with Gabriela Jaquez already showing the real potential value that she has going into this team. But on the other side of things, the offense is still inconsistent, the shooting has been shaky, and the Sky have already dropped some home games that they needed to protect their home court. And the biggest blow of it all, of course, is Rickea Jackson, who's out for the remainder of the season. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Sky's 3-3 start. Are they building something real, and what really stands out about this team? We're talking about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Sky fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Sky Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Sky related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chicago Sky Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And I want to start talking about this, right? The Chicago Sky are 3-3, but the record does not tell the full story, right? You got to watch these games. You got to break things down. I think when you look at this Sky team right now, right? The Sky can be very competitive this season, right? But they're still inconsistent in a lot of key areas, right? The Sky are sitting right now through the first 6 games of the season with their defense being the thing that really continues to stand out about them the most. And with Haize Stevo making her return in the last game, hopefully that's going to get even stronger, right? And you still got Rickea Jackson coming back for the Sky team as well. This team looks a lot more connected than what it did last season. And while the jury's still out on, in my personal opinion, on how good Tyler Marsh is or is not going to be as a head coach, I do think you're starting to see some things. The veteran leadership that this team brought in is helping this team be better. And there's just no other way around there, right? The offense is inconsistent, but we kind of still knew that that was going to be the case, and especially with new players. It was, even in the best case scenario, it was going to take a little while for that offense to jam, right? The shooting comes and goes with this team. The Rickea Jackson injury does change, I think, a lot for this team as far as how good they can be in their overall ceiling. But I'll say this, right? To understand where this team is headed, we have to start with one thing that looks the most real so far, and that is the defense, right? The defense of the Chicago Sky is real. There's just no doubt about that. But the question becomes about, can it carry the season, right? The defensive identity is one of the most encouraging takeaways from the Sky team so far. They've shown that they can win ugly, which I think is important for teams that have a bit of a talent deficit at times, right? They've had games where the offense have struggled, but the defense has kept them in the games. That's, again, a good sign for a team that, while I'm not saying that the Chicago Sky should be looked at as one of the favorites to come get a playoff spot or not. They're going to have to fight. They're going to have to claw. They're going to have to scratch to get there. But things in the signs are starting to look fairly good that, through the defensive effort of this team, there's some positive signs they're going to get there. They have one of the best defenses in the entirety of the WNBA, which is good. That's a good thing, right? You want to have something that you can be your calling card. As a team, you have to have something that's your calling card. And so because of that, you look at it in the Chicago Sky, you look at how good they are as far as defensive rebounding, which is really good as well. You look at the opponent's points they give up. They've given up the 5th most points in the W at 83.3. So again, one of the best, a top third of the league as far as defensives. And with Haize returning as well, which provides more length, switchability, and front court versatility for this team as well, it points to a sign that you're getting off to a good start. Kamilla Cardoso is playing legitimately with her size and is being a presence that you cannot overlook for the Chicago Sky team. She's leading the team in scoring right now with Rickea Jackson being out. Rickea was leading before she went down through the first 4 games, averaging 18 points. But now Kamilla Cardoso, averaging almost 15 points per game at 14.8 points, 9.8 rebounds that she's averaging as well. She's also averaging 1.3 blocks per game. Also, Kamilla Cardoso is being a legit anchor to this team. Somebody that, because of her physical presence and those type of things, teams cannot ignore on the offense or defensive side of the ball. And that's what you want to see, right? And so with the Sky, the fact that they are not overwhelming teams offensively, that's not what they're doing. That's not how they are winning the 3 games that they won. They're winning games because they're forcing games to become physical. And if you can force teams, no matter how good that team is, to play your game, that's what really benefits you. So the question that comes down to it with this one is the defense good enough to keep the Chicago Sky in the playoff race, even if the offense stays inconsistent through the entirety of the year? Now, hopefully it doesn't. And hopefully at the end of the day, you start seeing this Sky offense really start finding its rhythm and its groove, which is going to be a little bit more difficult with Rickea Jackson being out. But the defense gives the Chicago Sky team a foundation. But the problem is still obvious with this team, and that is that the offense has way too many empty stretches, and that's going to be a concern over the course of this, right? So let's talk about that. The offense is still the biggest concern with this team. The Chicago Sky can score in flashes. We've seen that. You can score in flashes, and the question is if how good is your defense? Is the flash of the offense going to be enough to get you in, keep you in that position? But the Chicago Sky, for what it's worth, have one of the worst offenses in the league. They're averaging also 83.3 points per game. They're giving up 83.3 points per game. So the combination of those two things, you're going to need one of those to stand out. And so with you averaging as many points as you're giving up, that means that every game, every possession in every game matters that much more, right? Now, we have seen some of the upside of the Chicago Sky's offense. We saw the upside of it in the opener against Portland. The downside to that is, of course, Rickea Jackson's now gone, right? And since then, there have been so many stretches where the ball sticks on the offensive side of the ball. And, we go through these laws. And Tyler Marsh, for what it's worth, as well as the head coach has pointed that out also, is that there is too many times where the ball is stopping. The Sky are not talented enough in the half-court offense for the ball to stop. They're going to have to keep moving the ball around, get everybody involved in that. And the Sky still have that tendency right now to go one-on-one sometimes. And we just don't have the individual one-on-one scores for that to be a consistently good offense. We just don't have that as well. We already are at a deficit three-point shooting-wise as well, right? Like, we are the second worst three-point shooting team in the league, averaging only 27% from three-point range. And so that's not going to cut it. We also are averaging the third least amount of three-pointers made. We're only making 5.8 three-pointers per game. That is not going to cut it in this league, and it's not going to be that. So I think now, and when you hear those things, and the offense becoming even tougher now without Rickea Jackson being on this team, Chicago Sky are going to need more consistent shot creation from Skylar Diggins, Natasha Cloud, Rachel Banham, Gabriela Jaquez, Azurá Stevens. Like, the players, those ladies, and their shot creation, both for others and for themselves, is going to have to take a forefront of this offense if we're going to want to have a formidable offense. The chance of the Sky having an elite offense, I never say never, but I don't expect that to happen over the course of the season. You're trying to have enough of an offense to where your defense can cover your ass. That's really what it comes down to, right? And I do think this, Kamilla Cardoso, for what it's worth, has become a pretty solid and consistent offensive hub. With the almost 15 points per game she's averaging, the two assists per game that she's averaging, only 1.2 turnovers per game as well. Like, you're starting to see Kamilla Cardoso, and she's blossoming as a player. And that's what we've all said that we wanted to see in year 3 from Kamilla Cardoso. Like, in the preseason, there were some concerns in regards to that, but she's really starting to look at that. So the question in regards to this comes down to this. Is this offense fixable with better chemistry? Because the chemistry is the thing that's going to get better as the season goes on. Or is the roster missing that go-to score that they're going to have to try to find? And is that score even here this year? It may not be, right? You may just not be able to find that score this year. You're going to have to do it through the community, right? You're going to have to do it as a team. And so when you have Natasha Cloud averaging 10.4 points, you have Gabriela Jaquez averaging 11.5 points, right? You're going to need that. Like, you don't have a single player on your team averaging more than 15 points. You don't have that. So you're going to have to do it death by 1,000 cuts. Get everybody involved. That's why the ball sticking around for the Chicago Sky becomes such a detriment to this team, because you don't have the individual scores that are worth your offense staggering and sticking around. So you have to move those type of things, right? And so that goes into something that we've already talked about. We know that losing Rickea Jackson for the season, it hurts. It doesn't just hurt the rotation. It changes the ceiling of this team. Legitimately, it does. Rickea was one of the best swing pieces on this team, right? A player that you were trying to develop as a go-to player, go-to scorer, all those type of things. She gave the Chicago Sky athleticism, shot creation, getting downhill and scoring in that way, and the two-way upside that Rickea Jackson had. And before, the injury, it did look like she was on pace to become a foundational player for the Chicago Sky team. But now the Chicago Sky have lost one of the few players who could create their own shot consistently. So what does that mean? You have to now rely on players that aren't as good at creating their own shot, and you have to double down on the team offensive side of those things, right? And so the offense has to now become about more of the collective than an individual score. The defense has to also stay elite amongst all of that, right? So it's up to Tyler Marsh and the coaching staff to find new ways to generate easy offense as you can. How does that happen? Through player movement, through ball movement. That is the easiest way to create easy offense throughout basketball. That is the history of basketball right there. That is what makes it that's how you create easy offense. So you can't replace Rickea Jackson with one player. You're just not going to do that. So it has to be by committee. And that's what the Sky are going to have to do. So the question becomes about, can this team still legitimately scrape and claw its way to a playoff spot without Rickea Jackson? And that's going to have to be something they're going to have to answer over the course of this season, right? If the Sky are going to survive without Rickea, the first player who has become central to this team has to be Kamilla Cardoso. She has to be centralized to what this team does day in and day out offensively, and it's up to her for that, which leads us to the next topic. Can Kamilla Cardoso become a legit anchor for the Chicago Sky team, right? She's shown the strong production through the first 6 games of the season. She gives legitimate size, rebounding, rim protection, interior scoring. She has done all of that this season at a really great level, right? And it also forces the defenses to collapse. When you have a player like Kamilla Cardoso, who's a legit force in the paint, it collapses the defense, which then is going to open up opportunities for the shooters, but also the cutters to cut to the rim and get easy baskets and to catch the defense on their heels. And that is something that's up to Tyler Marsh, right? They need Kamilla Cardoso during the rest of the season to not just be a good center. She has to become a nightly problem for whoever she's matched up against. And that is something that she's going to have to do and be consistent at each and every night for this guy's offense. And not to say it's all on her. It's also on Skylar Diggins as the point guard to run this offense and create. It's up to players like Rachel Banham to hit their open shots, do those type of things, for the shots that are created for you. Haize Stevens, who's only played 1 game and only played 16 minutes, she's going to have to step up as well for this team. Sydney Taylor, we saw some flashes from her. She's played in 4 games so far, averaged 10 minutes. You're going to have to see that from her also, right? So, again, the committee aspect of this has to be done. But the problem with it also is the Chicago Sky don't have a single player shooting above 33% from 3. It's Gabriela Jaquez shooting 33% from 3 on 2 attempts per game, and Rachel Banham's shooting 4 attempts per game at 32%. But that's it, right? So you need more than that. The Sky don't have a single player on this team who is making more than 2 3-pointers per game. We don't have that. So the spacing is already affected by that. You have the presence down low, but because you don't have the consistent 3-point shooting, it's not creating any type of spacing. How do you do that? Cutting, moving to the basket, moving without the ball. These are things that Tyler Marsh has to instill in this team if he wants to get that. So the question then becomes about, is Kamilla Cardoso really ready to be the focal point of a Chicago Sky's offense, because they need her to do that? Some of the major development for Kamilla Cardoso has already happened this season. Can you continue that, right? She's not going to carry it alone. I'm not saying that, but she has to become a consistent presence for the Chicago Sky's offense to get where it's going to have to get to. And so you've had leadership, right? Natasha Cloud's leadership has done wonders. Given the Chicago Sky toughness, communication, the championship experience that she's bringing, the leadership, right? Her saying iron sharpens iron, that mentality, it fits this roster wholeheartedly, right? And so we know that Natasha Cloud can organize a defense. You need Skylar Diggins to organize the offense, right? And Natasha Cloud, Haize Stevens, these veterans' voices become even more maximized now in the spot where it is right now. You need a great connector for this team, and that's where you're going to have to double down on your veterans getting that. But there's also a wild card in all of this that I want to talk about before we get out of here, and that's Gabriela Jaquez. Gabriela Jaquez is becoming a real piece for the Chicago Sky team. She's brought energy, she's brought movement, she's brought the cutting, she's brought rebounding, she's brought effort. She not only fits the identity of how we want the Chicago Sky to play, she's one of the few players that brings all that together that the Sky are lacking. She does that. Now, again, like I said with Kamilla, I'm not trying to put all of this on Gabriela Jaquez. You can't do that as a rookie. I'm not going to do that for any rookie, right? I don't care where she was picked. But the fact that she's averaging 11.5 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 1.2 steals, she's shooting the ball 42% from the field as well. These things, you need that. The way that she cuts, the way that just how smart Gabriela Jaquez is as a player. She's one of those players that you look at, and if she continues, again, not to put everything out on her, but with Rickea Jackson gone, the role of Gabriela Jaquez is going to grow exponentially. And they need her to be ready to make open shots. They need her to be ready to attack in space. They need her to keep the ball going in that. The development of Gabriela Jaquez matters so much because you need players to contribute while they're young. And that's the thing that you have. How much more can you ask from Gabriela Jaquez? I don't know. That's up to the coaching staff. They're in here with her day in and day out. She doesn't have to replace Rickea Jackson's talent. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not even trying to have that conversation on who's more talented or anything like that. But she can help replace the effort, the movement, the toughness, the intentionality, and just the ability to just go out there and get some shit done sometimes. That's what you need, right? All the individual players have to step up, but Gabriela Jaquez, I think, is ready to do some things for this team overall. So what does all this tell us about the team, right? The Chicago Sky, as I said, they're averaging 83.3 points per game, which ranks towards the bottom of the league offensively. They're 13th in the WNBA offensively, right? That offensive ranking lines up with the concerns that I have when you see this team play, right? Defensively, the Chicago Sky are allowing 83 points per game, which puts them in the top third of the league defensively. So they are in the top 5 to 6 range defensively, and that can range based off games that happen each and every night. The defense is the strength of the Chicago Sky, no doubt about that. The offense becomes the question for the Chicago Sky. And so if this offense can rise even from bad to average, the Chicago Sky can stay competitive, but you're going to need that defense to stay elite. And I think when you look at it, the early rankings tell you how dangerous this team can be. And so the question that we asked at the beginning of this, can the Sky actually be a playoff team? I think the defense gives them a chance. I think Cardoso's development gives them a solid foundation. Natasha Cloud, Skylar Diggins gives them veteran stability that they need with this team. And Azurá Stevens and Dejanay Carrington returning should raise this overall ceiling and the floor of the Chicago Sky as well. But with that Rickea Jackson injury still lingering on as well, the margin for error became even less for the Chicago Sky. The offense has to improve, the defense has to produce, and the Chicago Sky have to win winnable games that are at home absolutely. The season's not lost. It has just become more difficult when it comes down to it. And we'll see what the Chicago Sky can do with it. I'm not counting out my Sky. It's been a fun season through 6 games. Let's see what they can do. They take the court again on Wednesday. That's going to be a fun one to watch. And we'll just see how this goes on for this team. But I want to hear from you guys on this. How do you feel about the Chicago Sky team? What do you think about their ceiling from what you've seen so far from this team? Do you think they can play well enough to still contend for a playoff spot, even if they don't make it? Can they be in the running for a playoff spot as this season goes on? I want to hear from you guys in regards to that one. Let me know your thoughts down below on all of that and how encouraged you are about this team and the 3-3 start. That's my time. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at Chicago Sky Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoSkyCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Sky related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, let's go to Skytown. I'll see you guys the next time we go to Skytown. Love you guys. Go Sky, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.